So I'm just going to start, Andy, maybe by jumping ahead a little bit and saying, can you just tell us about your connection to Sligo and maybe to the course?
Yeah, thanks, Kerry, and thanks to all the guys for joining today. I'm from Balladreen, which is on the Muire's common border, and I went to Tralee when I first came out of college, doing a similar course. I lasted 2 months; it was too far away from me, so I took my time, took a break, took 2 years out of college, played a bit of soccer in Longford, and then decided, okay, it's time for me to move. The two things that attracted me to Sligo, or three things that attracted me to Sligo, was one, its locality, very close to where I live. I'd be very much a home bird. Two was the course itself, in terms of what the course offered me. I'm very interested in the world of business, very interested in the terms of recreation. When we talk about business further down the line, you can see why I kind of chose the course. And the third one was the Gaelic football, and I just loved the way it was progressing at the time. And so it made it a home for me, and it allowed me to go home on a Thursday, Friday. My connection is huge. I'd always be always sending people to do the course. We've taken other people out of it. We'd employ, which we'll get back to, we employ 24 people now. A good few people have done the course. My wife done the course with me, Jennifer, who's my partner in the business. My brother-in-law, David, did the course, who's now runs his own gym in Claremorris, but also works for us as well. So we've a massive connection with the course itself. Yourself, Roddy, Paul, all you guys, we have a massive connection with the course, and we're taking students in all the time on work experience and little bits like that.
Yeah, and Andy, like, did you form a lot of friendships during your time on the course? And are you still in contact with people from that time?
Yeah, huge. And I think people have a weird kind of connection with the term friendship and networking and connections and things like that. What I loved about since we left college, you can literally just send me an email and say, Andy, will you connect with us for... Now, me and you don't have to be in conversation for the last couple of years, but then all of a sudden we have that network built up, we have that connection built up, and away we go. And I would have the same thing with Kieran Gallagher, who's a lecturer down there, Porrick Hart, a good friend of mine, Dominic McGlinchey up in Donegal, Adrian Flynn and Leitrim, and just guys who build connections during the years. When they need something, they know they can contact me, and I know I can contact them, whenever that is. And that relationship is strong to this day. Are we texting and ringing and doing that on a weekly basis? No, but every now and then when them guys need something or I need something back off them, we always have that connection, always have that network. And I think that's what college is about. You'd often hear this being an alumni of a college. The thing is that we always have a connection. We have a pride that we went to Sligo at that time, and we keep that pride. And I'm 37 years of age now, and I still have that kind of pride and that pull to Sligo all the time.
Yes, certainly the friendships are important. The connections, I've definitely noticed that people who have done the course have gone on and used the people who they studied with as support. Maybe in business, maybe in social occasions, but there's always a support there, a network you can draw on at different times. Which, as you said, is interesting, that you might not be in contact with someone for years, but they're there when you get in touch with them.
Well, I'll give you a good example of that, Kerry. I was kind of late to the business side of it, so I started my first business. But when I started, there was a guy called Sean Personal. I'm sorry for name dropping, but he's from Boyle in County Roscommon. But he did the course with us, Kerry, you know?
Yeah.
But at that stage, he had set up maybe 1-2 businesses, so I could connect in with him straight away to see, Joe, how did you formulate your business plan? Where did you go? How did you kind of move around these little obstacles? What are the pitfalls I need to look into? Like, so if I give you an example of a pitfall, when you employ someone, you have to play employees and employers PRSI, which I never knew about. And he explained to me how you work that and how you kind of work your finances around it. And that connection came solely from the two of us doing the business and recreation course in Sligo, and then right through to 2015 when I started my first business.
Yeah, that's interesting. And just getting back to the course then, that connection between sport and business, was that useful to you? Was that something that you felt helped you in your career now, or was it necessary, you know?
Yeah, well, the funny thing about college is when you come straight out of college, you don't see the direct effect of college on your working life, because you're basically starting off, you're moving, and unless you're an entrepreneur and you go straight into it after college, you don't see it. But as the years go on, you see little direct links, little areas where you develop, little areas that we had the captain back in the day, little fun games that he put in place, little kind of ideas from the gym. I remember giving out to Roddy one day, Roddy Gaynor, about the design of the gym in the Newla there, in the new complex. And I was saying, why didn't you do it this way? And we had a half an hour discussion about the design of a gym. Now, little did I know, 10 years later, I'd be designing my own gym, and that conversation was still coming back into my own head. And just little areas like that really kind of helped. The financing side of it helped me, even though I wasn't strong on it, but it gave me little kind of areas that I knew I needed to work on, a little bits of help along the way.
And I'm gonna get the students to jump in a minute with some questions. So guys, if you could just kind of think about some questions for the moment. I'm just gonna ask Andy another question, and after that, I'd like to hear from some of you guys. But Andy, like that, after you finished college, then what was the kind of roadmap to you setting up your own gym? How did that path go?
Yeah, so I was quite slow. I always had it in my head that I wanted to do something where I was my own boss and I was an entrepreneur and I was employing people. So the way I would kind of look at myself kind of giving back would be that if you can create a job for someone to stay local in the west of Ireland. So it drives me mad that all our great people have to move. And it used to drive me mad in this industry, even when I moved away from the course, that it wasn't a viable living for people to stay in the west of Ireland and work in the gym industry unless you were doing it for cash or unless you were doing kind of different sort of things. So that was kind of always in the back of my head. Football and sport got in my way for a long time, Kerry, after it, if I'm being honest, in terms of business, because everything I did was adapted towards football and sport and little things like that. So I went repping, and I went to Jordanstown after Sligo IT. I did my master's in marketing and entrepreneurship directly out of the course. Wouldn't have gone into that course only I did the business side of it in Sligo. Went to there, qualified, moved away, went repping for pharmacy companies and little bits like that. And in 2015, we just had our first child, and I said, if I don't make the move now, I won't move. So when little Charlotte arrived, I talked to Jenny, and we said, listen, let's go for this. And we went for the business. And it's kept myself, Jenny, it's kept a roof over our head. It's kind of starting to raise our 2 children. And we've 24 staff, which we're very proud of.
And can you just tell us about the very beginnings of the business?
Yeah, there was nothing. I suppose one advantage I had was that I played for Mayo. I set up the business in Castlebar. So I kind of had a bit of a profile where I could kind of push it out straight away. But like, I've never... bar having a child, I don't think we have ever learned something so much on the job than doing the business. So there's an awful lot of talking, but when you're actually doing something, you're learning. And we kind of learned, as I said, the employer's PR side, big fright, little bills, little things that you need to go up, how you deal with staff, how do you build a team, how do you build a brand, how are you different? Like, I'll give you an example, guys. Okay, so we went into the gym, and we tried to be everything to everyone. So we tried to be a class-based gym, we tried to be a PT gym, we tried to be a weightlifting gym. So we tried to, in this 6,000 square foot unit, we tried to have everything going, and it was mayhem. Like it was an injury waiting to happen. And the way I describe it now, we're in such a great industry, a superb industry. So if you look at it from, Kerry, you like a bit of surfing out of open water. So you have that side of leisure. You have Pilates, you have yoga, you have PT, you have spin classes, you have yoga, you have group training, you have sports training, you have S&C. So the way I describe our industry is like, if you went into a shoe shop, you wouldn't expect to buy clothes. If you went into a clothes shop, you don't do you know what I'm saying? So if you broke it down into retail, we're in different forms of retail. So it took me an awful long time to learn, okay, my philosophy isn't in here for everyone. My philosophy isn't here for guys who want to bodybuild. My philosophy literally went from, how can I get people in healthy, put a smile on their face, get a good workout, and leave with a smile on their face. So that incorporated from 16 years of age to our oldest member who's 67 in one gym, and our oldest member here is 84 in this gym. So we kind of encapsulate everyone, but we try to do it in a fun, safe environment. So there's no bodybuilding, no weightlifting in general. It's just kind of, we create fun and we create an environment and try to make that's our selling point.
It's funny you say that, because I watched some of the videos online from inside your gym, and I definitely noticed there was that kind of aspect of a wide variety of fitness types of people, and everyone seemed pretty happy in there. You know, that's the one thing I picked up on, was people looked very satisfied in there and like they were enjoying themselves.
Yeah, well, the key thing to that, Kerry, is there's an old kind of statement where you say you get the right people onto your bus. So what that means is basically you have a bus, you fill it with energy, but the way you fill it with energy is get the right staff.
That's great.
And everyone is always looking for customers and how to make, but if you get the right staff and you trust the right people and you pay them well enough, they will stay with you. Now, my mistake at the start is I didn't pay my staff well enough. One, because I didn't really know. And secondly, because we couldn't afford it. Now, if you ask me, how did I build that from start to finish? I couldn't tell you. I actually don't know. A lot of it happened by chance, but we got the right people, we got the right managers, we paid them well enough, and away we go.
So that's interesting. So just for the students who are listening, like in terms of what you're looking for in a person who comes in, you said the staff are so important. What are some of the key things you look for in a person when you bring them on board?
I've stopped looking at CVs. I've literally stopped looking at CVs. We just look at the person and we see what sort of energy they have around the place. Because particularly in our industry is completely people driven. If you can't deal with people, it actually doesn't matter what you have on your CV. So we try to make it as strong about the person as we can. And I like the biggest challenge that the guys have on the Zoom call here is they're missing that personal interaction with people. So right, Kerry, you know this and I know this. Like, it's the energy of the person, how they can deal with people. And guys, in this society that we live in now, that is so driven by social media and being on the end of the phone and giving your opinion, if you are that person that can deal with people, you'll have a job for the rest of your life.
That's interesting, and it's really good feedback for the students in terms of when they go out looking for work themselves. I see, Roger, you have a question there, and it's what is the biggest challenge, Andy, that you faced? So what's the biggest challenge you've faced in business, Andy?
Yeah, well, there was two things. We first started off the business when we had a business partner, and after 18 months, we had to go our separate ways, which was very, very difficult. A very good friend, and it wasn't the nicest couple of months of my life, I have to say. And obviously, COVID then is huge. So if we go with the first one, they'd be the two biggest challenges. The first one we just had two different kind of points of view of where the business should go. And the learning from that for me was we should have had that ironed out before we ever started.
Right.
And we didn't. And listen, it was unfortunate and the way it went, but these things do happen and you'll have friends and stuff like that. But when you go into business and you go into a partnership, it's not that one person wants to do something to the other person. It's that you might just have two different views on how the business should be running. And when that happens, it's unfortunate. So my advice on that is really delve into what does this person want to do? What do they want to achieve? Is it the same goals as me? And are we happy to go away? And the one way to do that is have specific jobs. So Andy's doing this, Kerry's doing this, and then you're accountable to something. But if one person is accountable to everyone, or one person thinks they're doing all the work, that's where the difficulty starts coming. So really nail down what your jobs are. And the second thing is COVID. COVID has been huge in our business. For our business, I'll give you an example what's huge within ours. We've 24 staff. We've 3 people within my staff that maybe have suffered in the past with mental health and all these things that we've all know somebody or we're connected to somebody that have suffered in some way. So looking after them people and making sure, looking after their friends of mine now, looking after them, making sure that they're all right, making sure they can use the gym. How do we keep them moving? How do we keep them busy so that they have a purpose every day they get on? That's been a huge challenge, guys. And I think it's something that's been really underestimated within the media. And that's the biggest challenge. Now, what we do as a team, I want to encourage each one of you, we kind of get a buddy system where we help each other along. And I'd encourage all of you to do that. Little text message, little call. How are you getting on? What are you doing today? Joe, have a chat and then see where it goes. At least you're checking in and kind of helping. So I think it's kind of very similar to a class like what you're in, or a team like we're in, or a football team. You're always just trying to help out the next person. But they're the two biggest challenges we've ever faced as a business.
And I'm going to get into asking you in a minute about lockdown. But before, I want to go back again. I want to say you started the gym in 2015, and around them, like the awareness of leisure and the importance of sport, exercise in a person's life was really taking off. Have you noticed that in society, that there's been a change in how we view sport, exercise generally? And has that had any benefit to you in the gym?
Ah, yeah, it's huge. There's a few things in it, Kerry. We came from a very mobile society where every job was manual. Now we've moved into a very sedentary lifestyle. So if you think about a farmer in general, where he'd be lifting, he'd be pulling, he'd be using ropes, he'd be walking, he'd be doing everything. Now all of a sudden that job now has become sedentary. And so people now all of a sudden aren't doing that manual labor. And that was exercise in a way where it made you feel good. You were going out, you were building something, you were achieving something, you were coming home. And it gave you that shot of dopamine or serotonin, what we're looking for to feel good. Now, unbeknownst to people's self, they've started using the gym. And our two busiest classes, Kerry, are 6:45 in the morning and 5:15 in the evening. And there's two reasons for that. One reason in particular is because it makes you feel better. It increases your motivation, your focus, and everything like that. So before work, you're being more being more productive and work straight away when you go in. Now, the second time, 5:15, is a very interesting one. So if you're a mum and you're a dad and you're going to work, you're coming home to two young kids, and that's your little break. That's your 45 minutes to give you another shot of energy before you go home to your kids, make you feel good about yourself, and you go home then to your kids, get their homework done or whatever. It just kind of builds that kind of good feeling about yourself. For your body production, for your brain production, for your productivity during the day, exercise is what we're looking at there.
Yeah, and I guess during lockdown, particularly, exercise is playing a particularly important part now in people's lives in looking after their mental well-being. You see that as well, I would imagine.
Oh, lockdown! I think the biggest encouragement I've got from lockdown is seeing guys I've never seen out walking, seeing local guys in my town of Balladreen out running, cycling, and it's just they've literally found this new lease of life. You drive by our football pitch, Kerry, and I would have always been given out about our young lads, because you drive by our football pitch. I had to go to it to get to my in-laws' house, and you'd always see the lights on in the gym, but you never seen the lights on in the pitch. All of a sudden, that every evening, lights on in the pitch, guys out training, young guys in kicking ball, working on their skills. And I think young fellas use it and young girls use it as a form of meditation, just to get out there in the open. And I'd be awful jealous of surfers, Kerry, because you get a bit of earth and you get a bit of fresh air, no mobile phones, you're out in the open, you're doing something you enjoy. Possibly the best exercise you can actually be doing at the minute. So yes, there's been a raise of awareness, massive amount of awareness, massive amount of good, healthy living, food, and exercise, and that can only benefit us moving forward.
Yeah, I would imagine, based on what you were saying, that when lockdown is finished, there's going to be an even greater awareness of the part that sport exercise plays in our mental health and our well-being.
Yeah, and I think that awareness, and I think again, and this is not trying to be political in any way or form, but where the HSE and the politics of the world has missed is that this is a chance now. We're fighting, they're on about pandemics. We're fighting an epidemic of obesity for the last 20, 30 years. And now we've had a huge chance. And again, people who've taken over, and we have a lot of criticism of social media, and rightly so at times. But one thing it's given us is real access to good food, nutrition, what people are eating, exercising. Now, sometimes you'd look at it and you'd say, Joe, will you stop exercising or something like that? But it's really given us an awareness of, what actually it looks like to eat healthy, look after yourself, and look after your body.
Andy, I'm going to get to one of the questions here. So Chloe says, what is the one thing that you would change about starting your business if you were starting again? Is there something you would do differently?
Oh, huge, Chloe. Great question. Yeah, the first thing I suppose I have to go with the partnership side of it. I shouldn't have went into the partnership. I was well able. I got good education. I kind of knew what I was trying to do myself, and I probably should have went loan fit first. That'd be one thing. The second thing is, I hired a few wrong people, not knowing enough about the industry myself, in terms of what I wanted. I went into the industry with a general form, with a general idea of what I wanted. But it took me 3, 4, maybe even 5 years to know, okay, this is exactly what I wanted. So if I had the right people encouraging me, not encouraged me, but a little mentor who could have picked my brain. Like if I was mentoring myself 5 years ago, I said, right, Andy, what area of the public do you actually want to hit here? What's your main goal? Where do you want to go? I had none of them answers. So I could have saved myself a bit of time, but the learnings I got along the way were absolutely brilliant. Little thing, I went to a really good seminar with a guy called Thomas Plummer just before I opened the business, and he showed me how to price memberships and all that. But if I didn't go to that and I went to it by pure luck, I'd have just went in kind of loose, and like I wouldn't have had any idea of that. But yeah, there's huge learnings. But the key thing is your people, who you're hiring. What an awful lot of people, Chloe, in this job make mistakes in try to go in and be. So I never name my gym, and sorry now, this might seem egotistical, I don't mean it to be. I never name my gym Andy Moran's gym. I named it the Movement, or it was Castlebar Headquarters earlier. And the reason for that is I didn't want people coming in looking to have a workout kind of with me, because I didn't want that to be the business. And what happens in our business, Kerry, is that an awful lot of people get burnt out early. So they do all the classes, they do all the PTs, and people want them there all the time. And all of a sudden, after 2 or 3 years, they get burnt out. So a good decision I made was naming the gym not after myself, but after and hiring people, good people to come in. Yes, I could have made a few different ideas on my hiring, but yes, that was one of the good things we did.
That's really good info for the students if they're thinking about starting their own business. Also, Andy, here's another question I'm going to get to. Joe is asking, you actually, as a footballer, you gave people of Ireland a lot of pleasure, because they got to watch you play, and you got a lovely style and you're a great player. So that's brilliant. But personally, did you feel that being an inter-county footballer affected your choice of career, your path? Did that have an impact on you?
100%. It was okay for me because I wanted to stay. My wife is from Ballahadreen, so I was always kind of going to live local, and I really made that choice to stay. But it absolutely affected career choices, and wrongly, Joe, if I'm being honest. If I ever am lucky enough to go in and manage an inter-county team, the first thing I will do is have a career guidance counsellor join the team, because it shouldn't. There's so many opportunities to what you could do. Now, what I discovered when I was about 31, I discovered, okay, I'm not actually using the inter-county status the way I should be using it. I'm not using my name, I'm not using my profile and all that. But from 20 to 30, I didn't use that half enough. And it did get in my way. There was opportunities to go to, I suppose, London, New York, Dublin, to work on certain things that the people wanted me to work on. But I stayed because of the football. So I didn't mind it as such. But what I did, I wasted 20 to 30, where the profile was kind of high, and I could have used it better moving forward. And that's what I'd encourage people to do. You love your sport, stick with it if you want to do it, but use that profile while you're in it.
Yes.
To further on your career.
Good. Now the questions here from the students are so good that I'm going to continue on with them. But when you started doing the course, Andy, did you think that you were going to finish this course and get a full-time job, or were you thinking more along the lines of entrepreneurship? Or was there some other goal that you had? Was there some other goal you had in your mind when you were doing the course?
No, if I'm being honest, there wasn't, Kerry. It was I kind of always kind of engrossed in the coaching side of it. Like nearly even like it's a strange one. I loved playing football, but I always kind of enjoyed the coaching. I had very good coaches when I was a kid, so I was always kind of fascinated by what you could do, how you could help and develop young people along the way. So I was always fascinated. You remember Dominic McGlinchey, Kerry?
Yeah, I remember Dominic well, lovely fellow.
Yeah. We kind of bounced off each other for the 4 years we were in Sligo, because the two of us were fascinated by the same things. And so the reason I did the course was to get a better grasp of coaching, better grasp of people in general, but just to give me the generalized view of, okay, what can I do here? I knew I needed a degree. I knew I needed a degree in the area. But that's where I went.
Yeah.
But I did my honours degree in business. And again, that kind of helped me then put a kind of element of, geez, yeah, you could do this or you could do that, or you could do things differently as such.
So it sounded like you had an open mind.
I had a very open mind when I started. And there was many reasons why I went to Sligo as I decided. But the sports course was was always the way I was going to go, you know.
Andy, I'm going to go a bit of sports psychology here on you now, because Jamie's asking in terms of recovery. So he's asking, first of all, he's asking a very straight question, which was more difficult to recover from? Was it your leg break in 2011, or was it your cruciate in 2012? So that's a straight enough question. Which of the injuries? But I want to add to that in terms of what advice do you give to someone in that recovery process? So.
Yeah, the funny thing for me, I broke my leg in 2011, and September 2011, and then I did my ACL on my other leg in 2012. Now, the reason I would always say I did my ACL was because I didn't give myself enough time to recover from the leg break in 11. I was kind of compensating all the way through. So the leg break wasn't difficult at all. Probably missed a trip to Australia with the Australian rules, the compromise rules thing, but it wasn't really difficult. The cruciate in 12 was enormously difficult. We lost to Donegal in the final that year, and I was captain, so I struggled with that one. But then I always kind of seen progress. Once you get the operation done with the ACL, I got it done 4 weeks after. Now, the weeks in between were very tough, but once it's done, you see progress. You actually see progress, and then start to move your legs. So you have 9 months there of progress. There's little valleys there where you struggle for a while, but then you start going then again, and you're beginning to move. But I hurt my back on the plane on the way to New York in 2014, and I hadn't really recovered fully from my cruciate in 12, and I was just coming back into a bit of form. I hurt my back, and that was the toughest injury, because that was the one where I just thought, okay, I have enough here. Mentally, I was drained. The public pressure from public, which I'm not usually that fussed about, but the pressure from public was getting to me. And I had a lot of things going on at the time. Jenny was just about to have our first child, Charlotte, and it was a really tough time. That was the one, Jamie, that really I struggled from. So 12, you could always see progress. 14, when I hurt my back, I could see no progress. So went and got an injection from that up in the sports clinic in Santry, and I had 6 months recovery. I was just lucky that the management gave me 6 months of recovery, and then once that started moving, I was away. But that was the toughest time in my career.
And Andy, mentally, in those 6 months of recovery, I'll just take that 6 months. What is it you did that you felt mentally helped you? Is there any advice you'd give to somebody in that position? You're out for 6 months. What do you do?
Yeah, I'll tell you what the best thing, Kerry, that happened to me is that the captaincy was taken off me. So for my 2 injuries previous, I was always rushing to get back because I felt I needed to be on the field. Again, this is internal pressure I was putting on myself.
Yes.
I always felt I needed to be back on the pitch playing and leading by example on the field. But I was never fit enough then to play. So I was always kind of pushing myself too much.
Yes.
But when the captaincy was taken off me in 14, I just said, right, okay, I'm taking 6 months here. And took 6 months, done great S&C. Struggled for a bit now. I played Sligo in the kind of final in 15, which we won really easily. But I struggled I wasn't great in that game. I only got dropped in for the quarterfinal. So I was still struggling along and doing okay. But what happened then in the quarterfinal against Donegal, I received the ball in the middle of the field. There was 5 minutes left, and I just ran. And it was the first time I'd sprinted in 3 years. So I'd never felt myself running it. And all of a sudden I was running. I made the worst mistake ever after it. But it was that burst of adrenaline. And all of a sudden I felt, okay, I'm back. But the 6 months, what happened was I gave myself time. I rested. I recovered. Really focused on my head side of things, where I got really into Stoic philosophy, where I was kind of following people and controlling what I could control. Every day kind of was a different process, where I went from, how I got there. Instead of thinking negatively, when I went to bed at night, I always wrote down 3 things I did well for the day, 3 things that I could improve, and never 3 things. And all of a sudden, my mindset began to change, and I could see progress instead of seeing walls in front of me. And once I seen progress, I was away. Then I could, every day then was a new day. Every day was a learning day. And it was all by giving myself time, giving myself 6 months and learning something new about psychology.
That's very interesting, Andy. You gave yourself the space you needed to recover, both mentally and physically. Yeah, that's great. Kieran, I'm going to stick on this sports psychology angle here. Kieran's got another question, and he's asking, do you use imagery?
Oh, love it. Who's that? Is that Kieran
McEwen?
Yeah, Kieran McEwen. I can see that. Yeah, you before Balladrine. That's brilliant, Kieran. Yeah. this is the key thing. If I could impart one thing from my football career to somebody else, imagery is the absolute one thing I would say, and visualization is the one thing I would say you get better at. Now, everyone thinks the visualization of lying on your bed, kind of getting into a meditative zone and imagining, smelling. You'd hear people smelling the grass, hearing the sounds. And yes, that's some of it. And some people can get there, and that's great. That's lovely. But some people can't. Okay? I'll give you so there's a famous picture of me pointing my ears to the hill after scoring a goal against Dublin. And the reason for that, we had a sports psychologist with us at the time called Kieran Shannon. And I played really poorly in the semi-final that year in 2013. And he just goes, Andy, you're going to silence the hill. So he drew a picture for myself, and I read it. And I just myself convinced I was going to score a goal into Hill 16 and I was going to silence the hill. So without me even knowing it, lads, everyone said after the game, said, why did you do that to the hill? I didn't even know I did it because the picture was painted. I did it. Didn't even know I'd done it within the game, and away we go. So that was a way that I started. I said, okay, there's something in this. So when I was a kid, lads, I used to write down on my page like matchstick men. You know the way you draw matchstick men and you might put them around the place? And so I used to draw little plays around the place. So I still do that to this day. I'm 37 years of age. I draw, if I wanted to play in my head how I'm going to play it, I draw it out on a piece of paper and I work my way through it. Who's on the ball? What foot do they kick with? And what I would do is I'd look inside. Who's inside the man? Who would they go to pass to? What foot do they kick off? What side do they like kicking it to? And I would have this scene before I go on the pitch. And the way I do it is drawing it out on a piece of paper. Little matchstick men, draw where you are on the pitch. How many runs can you make? Which runs can you make? Where can you do it? How can you work it? When I marked the likes of Michael Fitzsimons, he was way quicker than me from Dublin. So I would have to see how can I get in behind him so I'm out of his eyesight and where I can move from when I'm in beside him. So Kieran, imagery to me was the absolute key thing to me when I got into my 30s. How am I going to move? Remember when you were a kid and Packy Bonner saved the goal? Now, I'm much older than you, but we remember 1990, Packy Bonner saved the goal, saved the penalty against Romania, David O'Leary. I can remember being outside my house when I was 7 years of age, one of my earliest memories, going through that playing. So why do we stop when we're adults using imagery, visualization? Why do we not pretend we're someone better? I see someone slagging me there about David Kelly. How does it feel? I don't even think I was the second best, but Kelly was some player. But I learned stuff off Kelly, how Kelly used to move, where he used to go. Watch his game. Picture yourself being David Kelly. Do you know, who has the ball? Kevin McLaughlin has the ball. How do I move off him? So yeah, all the time. And I use it a lot at work too, guys. If I was going into a difficult situation. So if I was going into a difficult situation and I had a phone call today about GDPR, for example. So coming over in the car this morning, I had the conversation done in my head before I went into it. So I'd say, okay, this is how I'm going to answer it. This is the company stance we took on it. How do we go about it? So we do it in everyday life. Yeah. So if you're doing your sport, bring it into your sport, use it, and then it'll make you get better. Yeah.
And it sounds like from what you're saying, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So it's something worth spending time on.
But and Kerry, it's something we have innate inside us because us as kids, you're a genius as a kid, lads. I heard this one before, that life kind of takes the genius out of you. Okay, so remember when you were out playing in the front garden and you used to think, so you're much younger than me, so who would have been, David Beckham might have been the man, or Wayne Rooney when you were younger, or Ronaldo, and you used to be doing the stepovers and pretending you were Cristiano Ronaldo. That's visualization, lads. That's visualization of what you're going to do.
Fintan McManaman is asking about managing this year, and how are you going to cope with time management between being a full-time manager and also being a business owner?
Yeah, so with the business, it's all about hiring good people, guys. We've a manager here in the gym called Elaine Flannery, and she manages everything for me. And I kind of, I would describe part of my job as managing Balladrine, if you know what I mean. It's not that's my job and then I need to go and do things. I would say that it's all part of my job. So I fit in little parts of my day where I would put to management. So, for example, my kids usually get up at 7:30, so I might get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, have my coffee, and write out what I need to do with the Balladrine side of things in the morning time, and then work my way through the day. So when I get to training, I've everything organised by the time I get there. And then, like with the management side of it too, it's all about getting really good people with you. So I'm not good at video analysis. So we have a guy called Barry Maguire with us who's a teacher, but he loves video analysis. So he does all the video analysis for us, and he kind of does all that. So we're all busy, but it's about delegating and getting your jobs right and knowing what you're good at. And my main job is field coaching.
I think that's a very good response to Fintan's question. Fintan's on flying form, actually. I'm going to ask another of his questions here because it's so good. And I think you'll like this question, Andy. And it's basically like when you're on the pitch and things aren't going right, what can you do to turn it around? So is there any mental tricks in terms of you're on the pitch, you lose focus, things are going wrong? What do you do?
Yeah, I often struggle with this, Fintan, myself. It's a great question. I actually read a stat today that professional basketballers, the likes of Steph Curry and all them, they miss over 50% of all shots they take, right? Quarterbacks get 70%, I think, of their throws are incomplete, 70%. So no matter how good you are, no matter how bad you are, you're going to make a mistake, right? So it depends how you deal with that mistake. Again, guys, for me, it was about reading books. I have to say my favorite book of all time is called The Obstacle is the Way. It's kind of like a Stoic philosophy book. But it just deals with how do you deal in the motion, right? So if I'm on the pitch and I'm marking someone like just will keep it Michael Fitzsimons, and Michael Fitzsimons wins the ball out in front of me. Now, I could say if I'm thinking, oh, the whole crowd is looking at me, I'm going to be taken off, or if I cancel that and have a little trick in my mind to say, how am I going to keep myself in the game? So you're focusing on your movement. So for me, it was full forward a lot of time to myself. So what I used to do, okay, so sorry, Fintan, this is a long answer, so just stick with me. So if Michael Fitzsimons won the ball on the right-hand side of the attack, okay, and he was moving down the right-hand side, I'd be thinking to myself, then I used to say, right, what can I think of now? I used to say, if the ball was moving to the center of the pitch, who's on the ball? Can I see somebody in the middle of the field who might be left-footed or right-footed? Which way did they like to kick? So if you have little tricks just to keep yourself in the game, in the moment, it stops your head from drifting out of the game. Now, Fintan, none of us, I am telling you this now, from the very best player you've ever seen playing Gaelic football, soccer, basketball, any of them, to the worst player you've ever seen, none of us are immune to that. Everyone is immune to it. So it's how you develop a trick. Mine was, where's the ball? Where's the move? Where's going to be the next phase of play? So I try to keep myself in the game around the pieces. And in my position, we had a lot of time to think, didn't we? So you're full forward in midfield, you have less time to think, so you can just get straight back on the ball.
You never look like a person who nerves got to you, but did nerves and anxiety creep in at any point?
Yeah, I would put my career, Kerry, into two segments. So there's one segment from 2003 to 2011. Where I was a really good Sigerson player, league player, but when it got to championship, particularly when it got to Croke Park, I struggled. Like I did struggle. But then from 11 to 14, it was, or 11 to 20 or 2019, I had a really good kind of time then in Croke Park every time I got there. And I put it down to one thing. My wife Jennifer dragged me to a Take That concert in 2011, right? And you'd know who Mark Owen is. The other guys probably wouldn't, right? So Mark Owen was dancing around the place. Everyone was standing in Croke Park. I'm the only person sitting because we trained in the next morning, so I didn't want to be tired. So I'm sitting down, and I just started looking at everyone, and I looked down at this Mark Owen fella, and he didn't have a care in the world. Like, he was doing the same thing as me, but singing, and I was playing football. And I said, right, okay. So I made a decision, and I just go, right, the next time I'm here, I'm going to have the time of my life, because this little buck was having the time of his life. So I said, right, I'm going to copy him. So I wrote it down on a piece of paper. I said, right, next time I'm here, I'm going to be Mark Owen, you know? So went in, wrote it down. Wednesday, I used to get really nervous on Wednesday, but by the time Friday and Saturday came and we got on the bus, I used to be so relaxed. Saying, yes, I was nervous, but I used to accept them nerves. Like some of us lads try to be too cool to say, no, I'm not nervous. No, I don't get nervous. Just accept them. Everyone gets nervous. You get nervous. And then what that nerves does, it goes into adrenaline and you use it as positive energy.
I actually read something similar that Tiger Woods interprets when he feels anxious that this is a sign that he's ready. So that's quite similar to what you're saying there. I'm just going to ask another a really good question here, because a lot of the students here would be in this position wanting to break into the higher levels in sport. So they're good. They want to break through to the next level. In this case, he's talking about getting into a senior side. This is Luke asking the question. So to an athlete wanting to get to the next level, what's the advice?
Yeah. Is that Luke Jennings Mayo, no? Or where's Luke from?
It's Luke Rudden.
Oh, sorry. Right, Luke. So the advice I would give you is that, and I'm going to give you a few examples here, right? So David Clark was the best goalie that played for Mayo in my lifetime, right? David Clark was in the Mayo senior panel when he was in 2001 when he was only 17. He won his first All-Star in 2016, and he won a second in 2017 when he was 33 and 34 respectively, coming on 35. And my point is, there's so many setbacks. All it is here is how do you deal with the setbacks? And what I mean by that is, if you get, I suppose, caught up with the personal element of not being picked, caught up with the ego element of what people think of me when I'm not being picked, then you're not concentrating on the work that you need to be done. For me, it was always work as hard as I could. If I needed to do weights, get as strong as I could. If I needed to go to the pitch, you kick your balls, you do your little bits and pieces. So you probably all seen The Last Dance with Chicago Bulls, okay? Yeah. And a lot of people took from that is that, and I'm going to curse here, so I'm sorry, but Michael Jordan took no shit from his teammates. This was the big message that came out of that. Absolute nonsense. The big message that should have come out of that is Michael Jordan was the hardest working player on the team. And if you're willing to work hard, and I mean working hard on your skills, working hard on your diet, your strength, and your psychology, and I would nearly put psychology as important as your skills. That is the truth. Okay. If you're willing to work hard on all them kind of things, you've got a massive chance. Yes, you're football and you need to be good enough and stuff like that. But if you put all the small bits and pieces together, start reading your books, learn from the right people, have really good role models, you've got a really good chance.
That's a great answer, Andy. And here's another one. Luke Jennings, who you were talking about a moment ago. Luke is asking, were you always a good leader or did you grow into being a leader?
No, I always, and I think everyone does, I had leadership qualities, right? So I had some leadership qualities. But like lads at minor, I came from a town, my dad was a Roscommon supporter. I was playing for Mayo, came from a town on the border, which is in Roscommon, where we play our football in Mayo. And I used to go over to Mayo. And anytime I wasn't picked, there was always an excuse. Like, so there was always, I came home and they're not picking you because you're from Roscommon, or they're not picking you because you're from what club you're from, or your dad sports Roscommon. Or the reason I wasn't being picked is that I wasn't looking after myself. My diet wasn't good enough. I wasn't fit enough. I couldn't do what I needed to do on the pitch. Like, and what I didn't realize was that guy who was our trainer was a guy called JP Kane at the time. I look back now, and I've met him since, and we've had a conversation with him. He was one of the best coaches I've ever had, one of the best leaders I ever had, one of the best people. He pushed more people onto my own senior team than any other coach around. But I couldn't see that at the time. So it's a developed skill, guys. Some people can do it at 14, 15, 16. And yes, I definitely had leadership qualities there, but I didn't really discover them until my mid-20s, if I'm being honest. I was always a really enthusiastic person, always had good energy. So I had stuff there that I could work with, but it wasn't until I became aware of what was important within a group. Do you know something? It wasn't until I became aware that I didn't really care what other people kind of thought of the way I was. When I started being myself, and I started, like, I had really good people, Kerry, when I was a young guy around our town. We had John O'Mahony, who was a two-time All-Ireland winning manager, with a guy called John Gaffney, who was a Hall of Fame winning coach. So I had really good kind of role models that I could look to. And when I started looking to them, and I started they started influencing me, now I started bringing the best part of me forward, you know?
Yeah. That's really interesting. It sounds like you had those qualities, they were there, and you saw them developing and you went with it. And you used them then. Can I ask you, Andy, here's two questions here on burnout, which are, it's a popular topic, as in a lot of people are talking about it. So one person is asking, it's related to burnout, because they're asking, do you lose your love for football? Did you ever lose your love for football, your motivation? And I guess that's part of the burnout side of things. And Chloe is also asking, how do you deal then with burnout? So
yeah, I did. Brilliant question. I think it's from Mason there, the motivation side of it. 100% it used to happen to me. What we used to do, I used to play football at a high level from basically if I went back to college in September, you used to play right through, and we were getting to All Ireland finals at the time, right through to September, straight back into college. So we'd no real break, and everything was important. So I used to love playing for Sligo IT. Now I loved it. So when I came back to Sligo, it wasn't a break for me. It was like straight in, try to get people involved, try to get the club going, try to get moving. So it was all in kind of for us. Our club team was okay at the time, so we're kind of moving for 12 months of the year, and it's a real issue. Now I think the issue has been taken out of control a tiny bit, where I would say kids should play multiple sports. Like, I mean, basketball, football, golf, whatever your sport, tennis, racquetball, dance, whatever you like doing, surfing, swimming, you should be playing that sport up to the age of about 16. And then if you want to then kind of go into one or two sports where you're happy, and then make your judgment after that. And the reason for that is it gives you an element, right? So if I'm the best Gaelic footballer, and I'm 6'5", and I'm stronger than everyone else, and I'm playing a physically demanding sport, all of a sudden then it becomes too easy for me at my age level. Okay. Yeah. But then if I go playing soccer, which is a technical sport, okay, and I'm only the kind of maybe a sober, just getting on the team, or I'm not one of the better players, I'm learning a whole new element. My brain is developing. I'm thinking, right, no, I'm the main man on this team, but I need to fight to be part of this team. You're learning new ways to compete. Okay. And that keeps your brain active. If you're just the best player, and everything is expected of you coming out, then it gets boring. Your motivation is definitely going to wane. So as a young person, I'm saying develop yourself, play as much sports, and encourage people to play as much sports. The other side of it, I'm telling people to take a rest. And I mean take a proper rest, like as in November time or December time. Take it off 4 weeks as best you can. Take that off. And if you need a tiny bit of help and you need a break in them times of the year, you go to your manager and you say, I need a little break here. I need a tiny bit of help. I need to de-stress. I need to get away from this. Too much pressure on me. And that's where I think the burnout element comes. The burnout element in terms of training and injury, that's a different thing altogether. That's just managers and coaches not knowing their craft, not knowing what they're trying to do, not being able to put enough load on people. But that is getting less and less with the GPS units, the elements of data and all that. That's getting less and less. The motivation side of it is sometimes you need a break. It's like college, it's like school, it's like really everything. Sometimes you just need a break, get away, get your 20 minutes or get a month, just take your time and don't be so hard on yourself.
Great answer. So Reese, that's another good question from Reese here. He's asking, did you ever think about staying with soccer before you progressed went the GA route?
Yeah, I don't know how Reese knows this, but the soccer was my first sport, if I'm being honest. I loved it. I really did love it. I was 19. Two of my friends had made the old under 21 team. And I was mad jealous of them. I couldn't just, and I don't mean jealous as in bad jealous. I mean, I was envious of them. I wanted to join them. I wanted to get on the team with them. I wanted to be in the car with them, having the crack with them. So I suppose at that time, Reese, that was the time I realized, okay, I missed this more than I think. And I needed to go back. But my education, I went to Longford Town, Kerry, just before I went to Sligo IT. I was doing a FOSS course up there and in the coaching. And the education I got 2 or 3 coaches who were just, Leo Devlin was one of them, Dennis O'Brien. They were just brilliant people and taught me an awful lot. And I would still view the game of Gaelic football through the lens of a soccer player. So I would say the way I move and all that is all to do with soccer. And that's where all my learning came from. So no, I'm glad I went the Gaelic route. My dad thought I should have stuck with the soccer because there was a few pound in it. But no, I was glad I went the Gaelic route.
And so, Andy, that's a very good answer, a comprehensive answer to that. And I'm going to change topics slightly here because a lot of the students who are on this course are going to be working as coaches or personal trainers shortly. What's your coaching philosophy? Do you have a coaching philosophy yourself?
Yeah, it's all about people, Kerry. Coaching is all, we are teachers. That's what we are. We are absolute teachers. And not every person is the same. You treat everyone with respect, but you don't treat them all the same because, like, I know that some people come from a very privileged background, some people not so privileged. The key thing is to know your person that you're dealing with. And once you know the person, you can deal with it, away you go. Now, in terms of a philosophy and what we're trying to create is that we are trying to create a place when we're coaching sport of people who can learn, people who feel they're cared for, and people who want to be encouraged, be pushed, This idea of creating fun, and people think it's been brought out on days out and excursions. Fun for sports people is getting the best you can be in a fun environment. That is the best you can be. To run faster than you can run, to play better than you can play, and to really be pushed and encouraged. And do that in a really reasonable, respectful way. Now, I've been subject to coaches who I didn't think were good at doing that. I've been subject to coaches who I thought you could learn from. And I kind of have my own personality on it as well. So it's to bring all them things together and away you go. And like, guys, I'm telling you, if you're a quiet coach, and there is quiet coaches on this who love coaching, who might be a bit shy, do a communication workshop. Get, everyone just thinks, I'm going to get my degree, I'm going to work on it. But it's not about getting a degree. It's about being the best you can be, like as in a coach. How good can you get? That could be a communication workshop. That could be a leadership workshop. That could be a psychology workshop. That could be a people workshop. You will find your way, but it does take a tiny bit of work. And it's not just Kerry and Roddy and all these guys getting you through your degree and getting you to it's about going searching for something extra. And I would always encourage people to do that.
Yeah, the continuous learning thing is important. So you would advise the students to keep learning from other experts around them.
Oh, 100%. Like I go for a walk every night. We put the kids down at about 8 o'clock, 8:15. I go for a walk at 8:30. And like, it's a podcast on something in terms of coaching. And everyone thinks that needs to be a sports coaching podcast. It doesn't. It could be financial coaching. It's all coaching is coaching. It doesn't change. If you've got the people at heart and you're organized and you've learned your craft, they're the people that will succeed. And I'll go a tiny bit more on that area. I will go on, like, how do you judge success is a good thing. So I'm a Gaelic footballer. I played from 2003 to 2019. I lost 6 All-Irelands. So the way we judge sport, we still judge it as a gladiatorial thing where you go into this arena and you come out, one is a winner and one fella's dead. Like, that's sport. Like there's a first and second in sport. And some people view the second as a failure. Guys, we are going to be so disappointed. I'm telling you now, you're going to be so disappointed in life if you think that second place is a failure all the time. Sport is about the journey. Sport is about getting yourself to the level you can get to. If I'm an Irish runner and I make the Olympics and there's South Africans and Kenyans and Ethiopians and Mo Farah and all these guys that are faster than me, that can run the 10,000 faster than me, and I run a personal best and I finish 20th, that's not a failure. It's getting as good as you can be. And if you win on top of it, that is brilliant. In business, see, I've got a really, I suppose, spectrum of both. If you look at Ryanair, which is the airline, and you look at Virgin, which is an airline, and one is 1 and 2, but this company makes 900 million a year, and this company makes 500 million a year. Are any of them two failures? No, they're not. It's only sport that we look through this lens of first and everybody else. That's not the way to do it. Make yourself as good as you can be. Drive on. And if you're at the end of it and you're happy and you can come out and you go, did I try my best there? Did I do everything I could do to get to where I wanted to get to? And if the answer to that is yes, you're a success, no matter what people say.
And I'd imagine as well that this plays a part with your clients in your business because, they're of all ages, all different levels, and, sport is for life. So you want to impart a love of sport for life. So you were talking about what is success, so, you have somebody in your gym who's 70 years old. What's success for them? I think you've just answered the question, and that is reaching your potential or enjoying what you're doing while you're doing it.
And enjoying, you'd often hear the Dublin boys and the boys that win on about a process. But if someone comes in to me and they wanted to say, I want to lose 2 kilos or 30 pounds or whatever over the course of 12 months, and that's all they can see, there's a good chance that the goal isn't going to be enough for them guys. So what you're trying to do, you're trying to encourage them. What's your next meal looking like? What's your next walk looking like? What's your next run looking like? That's what you're trying to encourage people to do. And once they get there, then they develop a process, then they develop a habit. And the weight shouldn't matter to them. And what I say to people coming into the gym, and anyone that's on about losing weight, if you lift weights, a tiny bit of weight, your muscle, are your jeans a tiny bit looser? Are your top a tiny bit looser? Little things like that. It's nothing to do with weight. Once you go into the weight side of it, or that big goal, you're losing the whole point of the process and getting better.
Very good. Andy, you gave us a book. I think it was called The Obstacle is the Way. Now, somebody is asking, Chloe's asking, can you give us a podcast to listen to?
The High Performance podcast is one I really like. If you're into Gaelic football coaching and stuff like that, there's a Mike Quirk podcast at the minute, which I really kind of really like. And I would like kind of financial podcasts as well, in terms of there's a little group called the Coach and Bubble podcast. And you could have anything from a financial coach in that right through, sports and finance. Yeah. So if you go into the Coach and Bubble, Chloe, on Spotify, you can find a lot of them. And then the High Performance podcast would be the same, and just little things like that. They're just great little podcasts. Oprah Winfrey has a podcast. Brilliant podcast, guys. Mm-hmm. There's some of the stuff in there that you will not be interested in, but there's some of the stuff in there that are just, you get to know people's vision and their goal and why they actually did something. And that stuff is different gravy altogether.
Now, I've been trying to, with the questions, stay away from some of the highly specific ones, because I wanted to get a broader look. But there's one highly specific one here, which we'll go for, which is Willie Joe McHale is asking, how did it feel to score the goal against the Rossies in the FBD League game in the dying seconds?
Yeah, that's one that'll never get away from me. But I have a great friend, Shawnee McDermott, who actually went to Sligo IT as well. And the two of us were sitting on the bench that day, because we were just home from South Africa, and Shawnee he didn't mean to, but he was winding me up on the sideline. So what happened, Kerry, I scored the goal, I came out kissing the crest and doing mad stuff like that, and it was only an FBD game, so I'm still getting slagged about that one. So Willie Joe knows what he's doing there. But that was good fun. And it was only an FBD game, Willie, but it's one I definitely look forward back to with great memories. It was good fun, and it was it was good crack.
And we'll go back to Willie here, where he's got some specific question. He wants to know, who's the best player you ever played with?
Yeah, there was a few. So I'll go through a few and then I'll come back. So from a Donegal point of view, Kevin Cassidy, again, who was in Sligo IT, won a Sigerson. Carl Lacey, who was in Sligo IT, won a few Sigersons. Just brilliant players. But from a Mayo point of view, like Keith, obviously Colin Boyle, all these boys, Killian, are absolutely extraordinary players. But I've never, in my days, witnessed anything like Lee Keegan when he was at full throttle. He was just, you couldn't get the ball off him. He was just a sensational player, and he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. So I'd have to say Lee Keegan on that, and obviously Kieran MacDonald then a close second. But Lee Keegan was amazing.
So great answers. Here we go. Scott Lynch and another person here is asking, was it difficult stepping away from Mayo?
Yeah, it was time. It wasn't, I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was just time in my life. I was, you get to a stage where you're a grown man and you have two kids at home, and you can't be asking another grown man for permission, if you know what I mean. So my wife was, we had a little guy, Ollie, who's a difficult youngster. He's not absolutely superb young fella, but he needs time, and I wasn't given enough time. So I made the decision very early. I probably even made the decision before I went back in 2019. So it was just time for me to step away. Is there times I miss it? Yes, but way less so than I thought. As I said to you before, I'm very kind of keen on the coaching side of things. So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into that. So I kind of have another kind of goal that I want to go to. So it wasn't easy because it was so long and you have such good friends there. But in terms of time, it was just my time to leave it. And I have no regrets in doing it.
And so Andy, I want to, because I'm aware of your own time and you're giving us a lot of your time here. So we're probably just going to sort of start to wrap it up. And in starting to wrap it up, I'm going to go back to your business and ask you right now, it's lockdown, the regulations are in. How is your business adapting to lockdown?
Yeah, so we were very fortunate in one way, Kerry, and very unlucky in another way. We had a lovely progression on our gyms. We opened our first gym in, as I said, June 2015. We opened our second gym. We took over the leisure centre, which I'm sitting in here. We opened the leisure centre in April 2019. Mm-hmm. So my staff went from 8 staff to 23 staff overnight. Right. And then we opened up our next gym in October 2019 in Claremorris. We now have 3 gyms, and it was just very fortunate and unfortunate time, and if you know what I mean, particularly the one with Claremorris, we were just getting a foothold in that town, and all of a sudden we've been closed now literally for nearly 12 months, so it's been very difficult. But we've got a great relationship here with the council and Mayo County Council, so it's kind of kept us going, and this is where we kind of have our head office from now, and we're kind of running all the businesses. So I've been lucky enough to be able to keep 14 people on the books during the lockdown. So we're doing our Zoom classes. It's definitely allowed us to reset Kerry, particularly the first lockdown. We opened up, so we won the contract for the building here in the leisure centre 6 weeks before we opened. So we hadn't our software systems in place properly. We hadn't we hadn't all the little nitty gritty pieces, how the place runs in place when we closed in March 2020. So the first lockdown allowed us to get everything in place and really nail it down, our policies, our procedures, the way we want our gym run, so when we opened then in June, July, we had a great time. But like, we had our most successful September we ever had in the 5 years we were open. We had we were really going well. Now this one is a body blow again, but we're fairly confident when we open that we'll be ready to go. We've now got a nice online sort of stream, which is, I wouldn't call it a business, but there's other elements to it where we go into corporates like virtually, we go into schools virtually, and we do all them sort of things. So we have a nice little element to that as well, which is nice. We've definitely developed the business a tiny bit through it.
Well, it sounds like you're keeping your profile up during lockdown, which is important, because I'd imagine that after lockdown, there's going to be this pent-up demand, and there's going to be a great desire to get back into the gym and get back exercising. And if you've kept the profile up, you're going to be back in business.
But you're on about, Kerry, how you can change people's actions and habits. We got to a situation that people were trying that hard to keep our gym open. So in our class-based gym, which was our first gym, we used to put 50 people into a class. But now we were down to 21 people, 21 zones. Everyone had their own equipment, and we kind of sectioned it out. And at the end of each class, Kerry, we had 21 people down on their hands and knees, wiping the equipment, getting it ready for the next people to come in. They were so keen to keep the place open and to look after us.
That's
and
amazing,
to make sure. And it was just amazing. And you can always kind of change little habits and kind of get them going. I just see a question here from Chloe. What are my long-term goals for the business? If Chloe asked me that 12 months ago, we'd probably have a place in Ballina, and we'd probably have a place in Westport now at the minute, But do you know something, Chloe? It was actually good for us to stop and to slow down and to analyze and to see where we want to go. So my long-term goal for the business is to make sure that I have jobs for everyone when they come back, and make sure that we're in a really strong financial position kind of moving forward. And I'm not going to move the business again until we've that solid. And once we've that solid and we have a product that we're happy with, we'll move it on. So that could take me 12 to 24 months to get there, but that's our aims, and that's our short-term aim, and we won't know our long-term goal until we get there.
I'm going to go to Andy, one last question, and I think it's a really important one, and it's in relation to stress. So a lot of people have stress in their life, and yes, sport is a great stress reliever, but for you, what's your stress reliever? Is it sport? What is it?
I think it's a great question. I'll answer this one from Reese. Will Luke Jennings follow in the footsteps of David Clark? Luke Jennings, I can tell you this straight up, can do whatever he wants because he's absolutely superb. He put in a performance for Ballinrobe last year against Ball, which was amazing. So good question, Reese. And Luke, if you're listening, get a move on. We need you fairly rapid. So my stress reliever, I think it's a lovely way. If you don't mind finishing on this, Kerry, it'd be excellent, because I often have this. People are so afraid of exercise. Okay. And guys, the biggest lesson you can is you're all doing a sports course. You have no fear of exercise. There's a general population out here that are afraid to and don't know how to exercise. And I know that to some of us here might seem silly, but that is the God's honest truth. And you won't realize that until you get into the market. Now, people say to me, what's the best form of exercise? The best form of exercise is doing whatever you can do. So for me, at this point, with 2 kids at home, homeschooling, doing all that sort of stuff, it was getting out for a walk. And that's what it was. And if we can get people walking, they'll get into a run. Now, how do you move a person from a walk to a run? You tell them, right, so you're going for a 20-minute walk. So for every minute, you're going to get a stopwatch. You're going to walk for 50 minutes and you're going to run for 10 seconds. Or 50 seconds, you're going to walk for 10 seconds. And what you do then is you build them up. You go 45 to 15 seconds. Then you go 40 to 20, and then you go 30 to 30. That might be too much. You might have to move it back. So you give them a little goal which is achievable. Now, to delve into Kerry's answer about the stress, a great way to relieve stress is the sense of achievement. Mm-hmm. So if we set our goals too high, so a goal for me, which would have been too high, for example, during this lockdown before Charlotte went back to school today, would have been basically, I'm going to work out every day. Impossible. Couldn't do it. Didn't have the time. There was no way I could do that. But if I said to myself, okay, I'm going to go for a walk every day, and that was my achievement, or I'm going to read 5 pages of a book every day, or I'm going to learn something new every day, I could definitely do that. So we're going to try to set, our plan when we move back into business, when we get back, is set a little goal that you can achieve, but make it hard enough that you're really working towards it, but make it possible. Don't set it too far away from yourself. And it just really, really helps. I also think a great way, and we complimented social media, Kerry, earlier, is stay away from social media. Like, you have to limit it. And I'll tell you an easy way to limit social media is, I see people who have Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram on their phone. Like, why do you need 4 forms of social media on your phone? I don't mind if you're on them 4, but have 2 on the laptop. Put Facebook and Twitter on the laptop and go in and look at it when you want to look at it. Joe, set 20 minutes a day to have Instagram on your phone. It's the most friendliest form of social media you can have. You can put up your good photos. You can, and it's a lovely way to kind of look at social media. So have that on your phone. Have Snapchat if you want to have a bit of fun. But don't allow all these kind of negativities coming into your head all the time. Twitter is so aggressive. So aggressive in terms of people's opinion. Now, you would not let people's opinion into your head if you walk down the street. So why let it in when you're sitting on a computer? So maybe just limit it that, but pick the ones that you want to have on it. And the last way I do the form of stress is that go easy on yourself. And what I mean by that is sometimes, particularly Irish people, particularly as a parent, ye as students, Kerry as a lecturer, sometimes we want to do everything now, but sometimes you just need to break. It's like what I was saying there about the injuries. Give yourself a break, the burnout, give yourself a time off, switch off. What's your reward for the day? My reward, lads, is my walk at 8:30. I know that sounds silly, putting in my headphones, try to learn something, and away I go on a walk. And that's my reward for the day. It's nothing, it's nothing too major. I'm no different than any of the rest of you. Just get moving, get yourself kind of working in the right direction. And they're great relievers of stress. And I'm going to do one more, Kerry, sorry. Yeah. It's just surround yourself with the right people. It's like, for me, my wife is perfect for me because I'm full of ideas. And she's full of telling me that these ideas don't work, right? So, but it allows me to come to the right idea. Do you know what I mean? So I'm too kind of hairy-fairy in the ideas I have, where she's very kind of black and white. So we always come to a middle ground. But if you have somebody who, if you don't want to, abuse your body in terms of drink, drugs and stuff like that, but if you hang around with them people, you've way more of a chance to get there. So what I'm saying is, if you want to get a 1-1 in your exams, or a 2-1 or whatever you want to get, surround yourself with people who are going to get you there. And they're just great little ways. That's why it's so good to be on a team, because team sport, usually people are aiming towards that same kind of area, not the same goal, but they're usually aiming towards around the same area. And that's why it's so good to be on teams.
That's a really good way of putting team sport, Andy. I love that. And the final thing, this is absolutely it, but just the students were all in lockdown now, a lockdown advice to them. What can they do with their time?
Get up in the morning. It genuinely is. It's like, I made the mistake myself with, again, sorry now for mentioning my 2 kids, but I made the mistake myself. I used to get up in the morning. The weather used to be bright, lovely. I wouldn't go for my walk with the kids to get them out of the house so they can burn off a bit of this energy, right? And then it used to be raining by 12 o'clock and I'd missed the 3 hours where it was bright, So get up before you go into your study, your work or your lectures. If you can get 20 minutes of just a bit of meditation, bit of yoga, a bit of exercise, a bit of a walk, whatever you can do, go and get it done. Come back and like, remember them neuropinephrines that I was on about, or the neurotransmitters I was on about, dopamine, serotonin, and they increase your energy. If we can get them moving early in the morning, not strenuous, nice and light, just get yourself so that you're thinking freely, I'm telling you, it'll make a world of difference to you. And unfortunately, me and Kerry will tell you this, sometimes you only learn that when you get older. So if you can start getting that into your routine, it really, really does help.
Andy, that's brilliant. You've been a real gentleman. You've given us your time. You've given us great advice. It's been actually inspirational. I've learned a lot listening to you, and I think the students have too. Just want to thank you for your time. And I guess if the students have further questions, they can either send them on to me or directly to you.
100%,
yeah.
Thanks, guys. I just, listen, absolutely brilliant. Some of the questions there, exceptional, and really, really appreciate your time, and keep up the good work. It's difficult for all of us, but we're nearly there. So we'll talk to you on the other side.